Hello, everyone. Welcome to a new episode of our Lunch and Learn series. We bring interesting topics from across the whole world of tech and web development right to you. Remember that if you're watching us live, you can leave any questions that you may have right down there on the chat. We will answer them at the end of the stream. Today, we have a very special guest. This person has been at Job City for quite a long time. He's our CTO, Mauricio Lopez, and he's currently working all over the place with all of our departments, making sure that all of the technology that we work inside of Job City is up to par to the current standards everywhere. Welcome, Mauricio. Please tell us a little bit more about what you're going to tell us today.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to CTO Fundamentals. Thank you, Sebas, for the introduction. First of all, let me present myself. I'm Mauricio Lopez. I've been in the IT industry for around 20 years. Okay, I started as a software developer, and I've been for 7 years. I've been the CTO of Job City. Who is this for? I think that's appropriate right now. This presentation is not really created for an experienced technology leader or a CTO. This presentation was made with software developers and people, on the trenches in mind. If you have ever wondered what's next in your career path, if you have ever wondered if you would like to open a startup and be the technical part of that endeavor, basically this is the kind of conference that will help you. When I started my role as a CTO in Job City 7 years ago, I didn't find the resources or someone or even a book that can tell me what the CTO role was about and what will be the skills. I will tell you a little bit more about them in the next slides. I would like to thanks to resources that I found, and I use them in different places of this presentation. And if you want to know more, I'm going to leave the links here. One of the resources is the book Think Like a CTO. It's kind of new, great book in my opinion. It covers a lot of topics. And also there is a series of YouTube videos. They are called CTO Fundamentals as well, but it's a more advanced and rich presentation because right now I'm going to take 30 minutes and do my best to basically give you an introduction to the challenges of being a CTO. But if you want to dig more, for sure, I'm leaving these resources in the presentation. Okay, please be aware that this presentation is not a manual on how to be a good CTO or act as a CTO. It will require many videos, basically, I don't know, trying to consolidate what I have learned and what I have seen in 7 years and what I have seen in other people's in the industry. It's basically nonsense trying to do that in a presentation like this one. Okay, I would like to quote Morpheus from The Matrix. I can only show you the door. You are the one who must walk through it. Okay, this presentation is divided in two big segments or components. Okay, first of all, I would like to tell you, or let's discuss what makes a CTO, right? Once we understand that, I think it will be wise to move into the next section, which is CTO skills. Skills that, in my opinion, every CTO in general should have. We will talk about a little bit more about skills in future slides. Okay, let's start with the first part of this conference. What makes a CTO? Okay. Let me give you the Wikipedia definition. Usually they are not great ones, but we got to start somewhere, right? A chief technology officer, CTO, is an executive level position in a company or other entity, could be an ONG as well, whose occupation is focused on scientific and technological issues within an organization. Okay, something extra, a CTO will make decisions for the technology infrastructure that closely align with the organization goals. I leave you a graphic here, and I think it will be prudent to tell you about, usually companies, what is the structure? I'm talking about mid-size, even small companies, mid-size, big companies. Usually you have owners, shareholders, and then you have a board of directors. Those are the ones that define the big goals of the company, where the company is moving. Usually you have a chairman that controls that board of directors. And then you have the CEO, which is the executive branch, the one that executes the goal. A C-level is usually below the CEO, and basically it's the top management. Okay, so that means executive level position. What else can we see here? Which is something important, decisions. A CTO is a decision maker, okay, and it deals with technology aligned to the goals. So a CTO needs to understand what are the upper goals of the company in order to translate that into action. Let's mention some CTO responsibilities to see if we can understand a little bit more about this role, okay? First of all, a CTO is a translator, okay? Technology into business, business into technology. It's bi-directional. We'll talk about opportunities. There are some great opportunities that are found in the technical aspect that has to be explained and executed by the business, or the business has requirements that can be solved by technology. So it's, kind of like a circle, okay? And the CTO is someone that can speak both languages, which are very different, technical, business. We will talk about that in a moment. Second, build, maintain, and a stable, scalable, and manageable platform on which they can grow a company. This is one of the things I realized when I entered JobCity 7 years ago. We didn't have a stable and scalable platform. We had something very rudimentary and nothing else. Everything was done on papers, spreadsheets. One of the things that I challenged myself to create when I entered this position was, let's build a platform, something where the company can grow sustainably through the years. And basically, we succeeded. One of the platforms that we use internally, it's called JTalent. It manages all the operations of the company. Okay, let me give you, a story not from JobCity, from another company. Amazon, as you know, started as an e-commerce platform. They are still e-commerce, but they do many things right now. They're into media and other stuff. But one of the things that is most profitable, even today, is AWS. AWS didn't start as a business. It starts as a platform to support all the growth that Amazon was having. They were having problems to spin up infrastructure. And they were slowed down by that. They created AWS, so they built a platform. And that leads me to the third point of responsibilities. They identified opportunities for the business to explore other areas. They realized that AWS, I'm not really sure if they had that name at the time, but that platform that they created could be shared with other developers and other companies. And AWS, as you know, guys, is huge these days. Okay. One other responsibility of a CTO is staying ahead of technology trends. Because usually the board of directors, the CEO and the other C-levels, and even the whole organization will rely on the CTO to tell them what is trending, what can work in our case, what can wait, what's something that is legacy we shouldn't be using anymore. Through the years, I have seen many trends. I can mention a couple. I can mention cloud computing, blockchain, cryptocurrencies, and now we have machine learning, ChatGPT, and such. Okay, a good CTO has to stay on top, understand what is coming, what is working, what should be discarded as legacy. Other responsibilities as well. Automate tasks and augment employee capabilities. As you know, guys, ChatGPT is something very current at the moment. Some people are saying that it can do 10x. A person can become 10x. Produce 10x what 10 people 10 people can produce. The role of the CTO is use that those technologies and see what can work in a particular company or situation to augment and automate capabilities. For 7 years, I've been working closely with the CEO of JobCity to make sure we're going ahead, how to make things more automated, more predictable, more reliable. Okay. A couple of more items, creative ways to use technology. And the last one, very important, balance tech opportunities and risks. Not everything that is trend is something that we should basically adopt. Okay, there are many companies right now that they are not allowing their employees to use ChatGPT because they are concerned about data and intellectual property flowing from their companies into ChatGPT, which can give them problems about compliance, security, and stuff we will talk about in a moment. So a CTO has to balance things out, technology versus risks. One last thing about responsibilities, and this is very funny. What about the IT infrastructure at the back office? I just put there a laptop, printer, cables, the back office. Usually a CTO is not in charge of that. Basically, there are other roles that can take in big organizations. They can take those tasks. But it's funny when the company is small, and it happened to me in JobCity. You have to do a little bit of everything. I clearly remember, and some of the people, folks that have worked in JobCity for many years, they may remember that in our main headquarters in Quito, we had a huge internet problem like 5 years ago, and we had to implement a complete, network to provide internet to the whole, headquarters. And I was in charge. We had to deal with a contractor. We had to deal with contracts, specifications, implementation. It depends on the size. Usually a CTO doesn't do these things, but when the company is small, it's a little bit of everything. Okay, different types of CTOs. This is something interesting to understand, and it's related to the skills that you may need for the role. Okay, this is more like the types of companies where the CTO is going to act. So think like a CTO, the book mentioned 4, and I agree. First of all, you have the pre-startup in name only. Basically, 2 friends, they just got from university, one is the business guy, one is the technical guy, they get together, they have an idea, boom, you have a pre-startup, okay? Basically, in those situations, a CTO is more hands-on. He will be coding the application, spinning up servers, creating a demo for future investors and stuff like that. When a company is funded, they receive money, their first series of money when they are a startup, a full startup. Usually they hire or some of the founders is a technology expert, okay? And that person is still a lot of hands-on, but is also in charge of building the team, building a more stable product, platform, or service, okay? I have seen a trend right now in the United States where many CTOs from big companies are becoming CTOs as a service, and startups can use their service in a partial way or half-time way, so they can get the benefits in order to grow the idea, okay? I just mentioned 2. Let's go to the other 2, and I have seen these situations as well. Even today, there are some companies that doesn't have a CTO. They manage all the responsibilities in different people, but they need to put someone in charge of everything because they want to do, digital transformation, for example. And some of these companies first CTO, okay? And obviously, there are CTOs that are leaving. New CTOs are entering these companies. Usually, in those cases, it's a company with well-established processes or not. depends on the CTO. And the new CTO has to take over and has to deal with what can I do with all this infrastructure, legacy code, team, people. How can I make changes so the company can still, continue producing their service without disruption? Okay. Your skills obviously will fit more one or the other in these types of companies. Okay. Let's move on. Let's talk about, we're still understanding the CTO role, right? Let's see another aspect. Let's see qualities. Okay. I really like this quote that I put on this slide. Keep your eyes on the stars and your feet on the ground. I couldn't synthesize the CTO role more, at least in my case. I need to see the horizon, understand technologies, understand not 2 months, but 2 years, 5 years. It's really hard because our space is evolving quickly and dramatically. Once again, let me mention LM models, ChatGPT, BART, whatever. We're suffering these transformations quickly, and I think quicker than other areas of companies. Okay, so it's really hard to see the horizon and also maintain what you have and produce value right now without forgetting what is coming. Okay, so one of the qualities of a good CTO is look far down the road before making any decisions. And has a vision that can be communicated and actioned. A good CTO can lead and inspire. It talks to people. It sells an idea to seller. It has to sell not dreams, but things that can become reality. Okay, a CTO, a good one, listens to the CEO on board and understands their desires and goals. That's their main job, because the bigger goals of the company are decided by these folks. The CTO has to, in some ways, understand them and execute. Okay. Keep themselves updated with the technologies that are most relevant to the company industry, for sure. For example, here at Job City, I am ultra interested in new ways to evaluate software developers and people, because we do a lot of that. It's one of the things that I try to see what is developing, what is people doing in different companies. Two main things or more things. Some people that get into this role think that they have to do everything by themselves. This is not a position for a lonely wolf. This is definitely a position to delegate, build teams, interact a lot. And usually, it depends on the situation. Sometimes the CTO is hired because he has a strong knowledge in a particular domain, okay? But sometimes not. I can say that in some aspects of what I do, some of the folks that are below me, they're very smart people. I really like to be around smart people. I tend to hire those kind of folks because they give me a complete overview of a particular problem or solutions, okay? I don't think when I consider myself the smartest person in my team. I think we complement. Complement is great. Let's see what else can we use to define what is a CTO or what is a CTO role. The CTO reports directly, usually, to the CEO. In my case, Andres Garzon, the CEO of Job City, is my immediate boss. Okay, but it is not unusual that in some organizations, the CTO has it. You will see this pattern in many companies. The CEO, the most important C-level, basically has his right hand. If you have ever watched Game of Thrones, the Hand of the King, which is the COO, the Chief of Operations, or the CFO, the Chief of Financials, and stuff like that. Okay, it's not rare that a CTO, because the CEO has many timing demands, basically reports to this fellow. This picture over there is Mark Zuckerberg, CEO of Facebook, and the lady in the middle is was not currently, was the COO for Facebook in many years, and the right person is the CTO. This is you will see this combination in many companies. Okay. Why I am mentioning this, and this is a little tip or piece of advice for you if you want to get into this role. You have to understand your immediate boss. This is very important. And I can tell you from my experience, Andres, we have known each other for more than and I had to learn his style. Um, for example, I can clearly remember an executive retreat that we had where they told us and we learned how we as a team communicated. And I discovered that Andres is more kinesthetic, and me, I am more visual and audio. So usually when I talk to them, Brian, in these days, I try to adjust my ideas and my way of communicating to his style so my ideas can arrive safely. Okay? Know your CEO. That's my main message. Finally, sorry, from the Think a CTO book, I would like to mention Alan Williamson, great book. He has this phrase, and I really like it. Basically, you can think as the CTO as a chess piece, okay? Let me quote directly. I like to think of the CTO as the rook, the castle, the most powerful piece because they provide the support for the rest of the pieces to move around the board, clearing paths into the distance. I talked to a chess player and he told me this is right. The CEO, the equivalent in chess would be the king, okay, the most important piece. If it's captured, the game is over. And the next important piece in chess is the queen. He can move around. That will be the CEO or the CFO. Usually you will see that guy in many places inside the organization. The next important piece will be the CTO. And I think this is more dramatic these days because business and technology are so mixed right now, something that didn't happen in the 70s, 80s. And basically the CTO, yes, tries to open spaces, clear the path so other players in the organization can move forward and succeed. Okay, we're going to stop here for a moment. We have reviewed what the CTO role is, some of the responsibilities, some of the qualities, some of the relationship with their immediate boss. And I think we have now common ground to talk about CTO, what skills you may need, okay? So please, I am not going to mention every possible skill. I am going to mention the ones that I think every CTO should know, in general at least, okay? Because there are things that happen and pop up every day in your job. And those are things that if you are planning to be a CTO in the future, it will be great if you study more about them. Because trust me, in 7 years, I have dealt with all of them and I have learned by trial and error in some cases. Possibly you can do a better job and prepare yourself in a better way for the future. Okay, the skills that I'm going to tell you about are divided between hard skills and soft skills. Something funny, when I was doing this presentation, I realized that I was putting more soft skills than hard skills. And I will tell you why in a moment. Right? It will make sense eventually. I will start by the hard skills because they are closer to developers because they are more technical, right? Okay. I think every CTO in general should know about these days about cloud computing. Okay. Remember, I've been on this for a long time. I remember going to Colos, to put my servers on a rack and basically turn them on whenever I wanted to have something and deal with the server, the operating system, networking, security, and stuff like that. When I entered Job City, I clearly remember that my predecessor, the only thing that he had was like, I don't know, a couple of droplets in DigitalOcean. That's the only thing that I inherited from him. And I realized that it's important to understand on-premise versus cloud, okay? You may think that cloud computing dominates and is everywhere. And, I received a surprise last year when I went to QCon in San Francisco. It's a huge conference. I really recommended it. I had the chance to meet with this CTO for an 8,000 people company. And he told me that they still manage a lot of on-premises stuff, servers, real machines that under their control inside their facilities. And he told me that it was because they were in the health space and they had a lot of, data compliance concerns and, requests from Europe. Europe is, very complex how you deal with data, especially when it's related to health. So if you're planning to becoming a CTO, it would be great if you understand what is the difference between two and things that you may need to do in both sides. Okay, let's imagine that you are entering a bank. You will deal with these things. Part of the things you will probably deal with hybrid environments. Some things on premise, some things on the cloud. How do you make sure everything works flawlessly, reliable, and in a secure way? Okay. I can tell you my experience in JobCity. When I inherited and I realized that DigitalOcean wasn't really working for us because we are always comparing to the US industry and our clients. We realized, I'm sorry, I'm saying realize it once again, that Google Cloud was the way for us because we were a small team at the time. We didn't have the resources to have many DevOps or infrastructure people, but we wanted to have high standards. Using the cloud was the only logical way. And we got into AWS. And we hated AWS, believe it or not. And then we moved to GCP per one recommendation from one of our clients, and we really understand how GCP works. And slowly, we have been taking advantage of all the services that Google Cloud provides. So this is an important piece: cloud computing, on-premise, how those two relate. We can talk hours about DevOps. I will give you some little hints about things that I consider. But first of all, I really love the idea. In the past, basically, if you ever read the book Release, the separations between development and operations was completely. There was even a barrier between those teams. These days, as you know, that barrier is more tedious, more lighter. Sorry. So here at JobCity, we have been doing a lot of this. Let me tell you a couple of things. We are containerizing, we're using Docker for everything. We are building a CI/CD. We have been building a CI/CD pipeline using GitHub Actions, and we are going to run the containers in Cloud Build. It's something from Google Cloud. Let me see what else. For example, we integrated Datadog. We are logging everything because if you want to be compliant, we'll talk about it in a moment, you need to basically save the data and interactions that are happening in your systems. We're using Terraform because we want to be predictable when we spin things up. We need a new server, we need a new piece of infrastructure. We have it in code, reliable. So in my opinion, a CTO will deal a lot with how do you create software and how you release that software and how you monitor that software and how do you iterate, okay, between those things. Quality control. I'm sorry. I don't want to forget to mention this. As part of this automated process that we have, we're having unit testing, API testing. We're putting even end-to-end testing with Cypress into our pipelines to make sure we're more predictable. Okay, this is another huge area that I am going to touch lightly. A CTO needs to understand software development because a lot of ideas usually they are going to be built in-house. In our case, in JobCity, we have an intellectual property team that is in charge of building the stuff that we basically spec for the business and to fulfill goals. Okay, I can mention a couple of items here very briefly. A CTO needs to understand all the roles. QA engineering, tech leads, architects, business analysts, testers, product managers, scrum master, UI, UX designers, even. So you need to understand the roles that basically will help you to create software. You need to define some kind of engineer culture. Um, all of the folks in my team, they have read Clean Coder from Uncle Bob. It's a great book. Uncle Bob, he had many issues with the community, but his book is great. It really gives you a framework to be, a respectable software developer, someone that really, a, someone that is really professional in what he does. Okay, so engineering culture is something to have in mind. Methodologies: are you going to use Scrum? Are you going to have a team that is completely, test-driven development, that is going to apply test-driven development? Programming languages. Oh my gosh, so many facts here. You need to choose which programming languages. And look that I'm using once in plural. I am not really tied to any particular programming language these days. Maybe 50 years ago, I was. Right now, it depends on the situation, the kind of team, the kind of people that I can find, the kind of talent, and if it's the right tool for the right job. But programming languages is a big part that you need to understand. You need to understand tools. We're using Jira, we're using GitHub, we're using Postman here at Job City. You need to understand external dependencies, because sometimes it will make sense to depend in an external provider than really create it by yourself. Here at Job City, for example, we're using TestDom, and it's integrated in our core application. And TestDom is used for sending, tests to developers before we actually send them a challenge, which is more complex. We depend on TestDom. We didn't really create that because it didn't make sense. Or even Mailgun, sending emails. Why should I have an Exchange server or a mail server to do that if I can use a provider, which makes sense in my case because of budget and because of convenience. So you need to understand dependencies. Okay, all of that software development, and there are many more things, guys. Here, I'm touching this very lightly. Architecture. This is very funny and very interesting. A CTO needs to understand architecture, because sometimes, especially when the companies are smaller, you have to guide and define the right architecture that is going to support the growth. If you are building something just for a demo, and that demo at the next 3 months receives, 20,000 users per minute, if you think things through, it will kick you back. So you need to understand architecture, things like, should I be OOP in the code or functional, or should I use functional programming? How will separate the different entities or different services that I have in my application? How can they communicate and live together? Should I use REST APIs? Should I use GraphQL? Should I use gRPC? How the data is going to flow? Should I have one monolith? Should I have microservices? Should I have a combination of those two? If my system is really impacted by traffic and it really needs to support traffic, let's say that you're in charge of managing the election day of the country. That system needs to support a lot of users. So high availability is part of architecture, creating resilient systems. Right now, I can give you an example. We are building for our sales and marketing team a complete infrastructure from prospecting and marketing work. That graph that you see in the slide is not really what we're doing, but it's an example of 3 different systems working together to accomplish a goal. Big systems: HubSpot, Salesloft, and obviously Salesforce, which is huge. And we're doing something similar. We're trying to understand how the prospecting data lives, where the transformations occurs, where we save the data, where marketing takes over. And you really need to think about architecture many times as a CTO. And I think this is the last hard skill that I would like to mention here: data science. We lived this problem around 4 or 5 years ago. All of our departments were hungry for data, hungry for reports, hungry for monitoring what was happening and trying to identify solutions to problems. And they began to use and overuse spreadsheets. What happened? Basically, the source of truth of information was completely, scattered. And we were the first here in IT that realized that we needed to apply the concepts that you see in that pyramid. We started by, thinking about all the data acquisition. Where are the sources where the information can be acquired and saved? Data engineering, where do we put the data? How we move the data? How we transform the data in the middle before we put it in a data warehouse or a data lake? And then applying business intelligence. I received a very interesting tip from one of the Uber tech leads in Europe. He told me, hey, we live that problem just like you. Basically, we did a lot of data engineering. We are using Tableau, or they were using Tableau. And Tableau is a visualization tool, big one, complex one. And they basically taught every department how to get into the data and use by themselves Tableau to get their report. So everyone was happy. They were happy because they had time to continue doing, software. And the other departments were happy. They had access to the data and visualizations and analysis and stuff like that. At the end of the pyramid, as you can see, is data science. JobCity is going there. That's my goal. Do a lot of data science to predict and generate the stuff. And that's on course, basically. So just to summarize, a good CTO needs to understand all the phases of that pyramid, because companies, they all need data, they all need reporting. Data is, I would say, is one of the most important assets of a company these days. So you need to treat it carefully. Okay, cybersecurity compliance. I think this is the last hard skills. It's funny. We as developers, we try to make our codes secure. We try to avoid injections using the right dependencies and stuff like that. You as a CTO needs to be a little bit more advanced. Let me give you an example. Many clients from JobCity, they have come to us and say, hey, we want to work with you. How do you deal with data? How do you deal with security, especially PII information, information to recognize people? And then I enter the world of compliance, which is a huge world. There are many compliance programs that a company can follow. Usually they are tied to an industry. For example, health providers, they usually need to get HIPAA. It's a compliance program. There are others like ISO 27000 and SOX 2 or PCI, the one that usually financial companies use. In our case, JobCity is trying to get SOX 2. It's a long process, okay? And you as a CTO and as a leader couldn't forget this. Even if you are thinking ahead, you also need to think now what you are doing in terms of security. How do you protect the data from customers, which is really important. Let me give you other examples that I have seen through the years. We have received from time to time hackers telling us, "Hey, I found an exploit in your system." I clearly remember an exploit about some kind of DNS that we had incorrectly configured in one domain and how it affected another system that we were using. It was very obscure, but real, and we realized that we didn't have a bounty program. Some companies, big ones, they have bounty programs to give some rewards to hackers that tell you about what is wrong in your system. Okay. Think about hackers. Think about penetration testing. Every year, if you want to be compliant, you have to do some kind of penetration testing in your system. A hacker, an ethical one, would try to get in. You have to make sure your company is really aware of security. Programs to train people that are part of compliance as well. Phishing tests. Let's send some fake emails to see how our population inside the company reacts. Okay, how do you deal with dependencies? When you are depending on a software, you're basically marrying that software in a way. You have to be careful. Is that the right vendor? Is that vendor using your data correctly? I clearly remember a case here in Ecuador a financial institution was using a company for marketing purposes, and they shared the data with them because they were doing some analytics, and they had problems with, security, and were hacked, and that information, was published on Twitter. um, and it was a disaster for them. So you, as a CTO, needs to understand what are you relating to in terms of like dependencies. Okay. Okay. I would like to finish presentation here, um, because I don't think we have the time to cover all the soft skills. Um, there are many things that I would like to tell you about soft skills that can really help you in this role. But I don't think, I think we have taken more time than I was expecting. Possibly what we're going to do is share a new video with the rest of this presentation. I would like to finish here. If you want to be a CEO, and this is an advice that was given to me by a CTO for a big company in Argentina. He told me, hey, if you want to be serious about this job, you need to understand what are the pain points of other departments. What are the problems they are facing? What are the challenges? Do you understand what marketing does, sales does, customer experience, even operations, or human resources? And I think it's a great piece of advice. As a CTO, you need to understand all the components of an organization in order to provide, or basically provide new ideas or help them to succeed. So I would like to stop here, and maybe we should do some QA. So Sebas, go ahead.
Yeah. Hey, thank you, Mauricio, so much for the presentation so far. It's a shame that we didn't manage to see all of it, because it's been very interesting what we've seen already. And I know many of the commenters on YouTube agree with me. I would like to know, from the skills that we've seen, and maybe the ones that we didn't, which would you say has been the hardest one to manage in your time as a CTO so far?
Well, not the technical ones. I am very comfortable with technical things, but business things, yeah, I can mention one. One of the things that I struggled at the beginning was project management and time management. I considered myself at the time when I entered as a CTO a good project manager, because I had done it many times, but I have never controlled multiple projects at the same time. And it's a skill that is very complex, very stressful, because you are reporting to the CEO, but you are depending on different teams to provide what you need to report. And then, obviously, you are going to have time management problems. So that's one thing that I really struggled at the beginning. And I have a slide to tell you a little bit more about that, but it's further in this presentation.
Cool. One last question then, coming from the other side of the coin. If you have a company, probably startup, or maybe it's been developing faster than that, for people who are not technical, when should they consider looking for a CTO, for someone to care about the technological part of things?
Interesting. I will say the majority of companies these days require some kind of person that can translate business into technology and technology into business. When is the right time? The right time, let me give you an example: digital transformation. I have seen many traditional banks, for example, they have been running things separately, infrastructures, some development, and they are moving to one person that can basically take the goals that they have and see how these players below them can work together to accomplish the goal. So whenever you have big goals in mind, and you need to use wisely the resources in your company, a CTO can be a great bridge between those two sides.
Fantastic. And I have one last question from our comments, which is regarding the soft skills. What is the best lesson that you would say you have learned throughout the years?
That's a big question. I have learned many lessons. Let me see. Okay. Let me use this slide, that one of the soft skills to learn Algo, because I have received many lessons. I cannot really say one is more important than the other, because all of them have taught me many things, important things. I have learned that English is not good enough. Okay, some people think in our industry that just by speaking English, you're a great communicator. Far from the truth. In order to really be a good communicator, you really need to understand your audience and how to adapt what you're trying to say to that audience. I have seen many early CTOs, early technology leaders, they struggle with this because they try to be technical when they explain things or when they relate to others. And some others, they don't really speak the language. So another thing, you think that you speak English until you go to a conference in the US, until you go to a meeting, until you receive a seminar in the university in the US, and you understand that your English is good, but it's not great. It's not really, doesn't really allows you to give or use the expressiveness of the language to translate what you're trying to say. Let me tell you another story. Basically 3 or 4 years ago, we started putting technical people in calls. So the salesperson was together with an IT person, and usually it was me, because I really wanted to understand how to interact with clients. It really told me many things. I understood the pain points that they had, what they were looking for, how to sell our service, how to listen, how to understand the requirements, how to, explain what you have basically received and see if it matches. So that really showed me many things. Definitely a CTO is not someone in a cave dealing with other, nerds. No. A CTO has to go out. He has to talk to clients. He has to talk to other CTOs. Great English, articulated messages are all together.
Great. Thank you very much, Mari. I don't know. I have loved this presentation so far, and I cannot wait for the part 2 video. And I know that some of our commenters also think the same thing. For now, thank you very much for all that you've said. It's been very inspiring to many of us, and to everyone that's been watching. Thank you very much for tuning into the Lunch and Learn for today. If you like this topic, remember to leave a like, subscribe to the channel to see the future Lunch and Learns that we will have, and share it around. If you know someone who's technical and may in the future want to be the CTO of a company, this may be a great starting point for them. So until next month, when we have our next topic, thank you very much for coming, and see you then.